Anne here, and this is More Than a Love Interest, the show where we talk about the arcs of female characters in film. Today is my mother's birthday, so we are talking about her favorite character.
Princess of the
Prince, Diana Prince.
Okay, Diana Prince in Wonder Woman 2017. The first part of the analysis will be a synopsis of the plot to discuss Diana's agency. Then we will see how her character arc follows the heroine's journey, and finally we will discuss the effects of her costumes and framing. Let's get started. Alright, first, Diana is the protagonist and commands the plot to an unusual degree. Very few characters even converse without her being present, and most character development occurs because of her. So Diana is rare for any character, but especially for a female character. Her level of agency is pretty high, with her main arc being her realization of what she is in control of.
No, but it's what I'm going to do.
At the beginning, she wants to be an Amazon, but her mother denies it. Then Antiope trains her anyway, and when Hippolyta finds out, she accepts it and even encourages them to train harder. Steve showing up and the Germans attacking happens to the Amazons. They have no control over either. And Antiope gives her life for Diana, which makes Diana feel like the Amazons were powerless. She wants to refute that idea and is shocked when her mother won't do anything about the war. So she decides to go herself. Steve takes her on a detour in London, which she argues against, but accepts as a means to an end. Diana had agency in leaving Themyscira, and being in London is definitely out of her depth. But instead of being dependent on Steve, she is allowed to show her strength here as well. She insists on selecting her own clothes, she blocks their assailants in the alley, she speaks her mind in the war room, her language skills pay off with Dr. Poison's book, and she impresses the gang with her fighting abilities in the bar. When they travel to the front, everyone in the party tells her that she can't do anything. She can't help with the horses, she can't help the people who are starving, she can't cross no man's land. And her decision to do it anyway is a huge moment for her.
No, but it's what I'm going to do.
She's not letting anyone tell her what she can and cannot do anymore. This is her moment of becoming a hero. Later, she rebels against Steve's insistence that she not attend the party and then not kill Ludendorff, and is proven right because of what Ludendorff does to Veld when he isn't stopped. So all obstacles to Diana's agency are framed negatively throughout the film. She does kill Ludendorff, and her darkest moment comes in finding out that his death didn't end the war. But instead of the movie corroborating this idea and bringing her down, Ares appears and definitively proves her worldview right. What she has been supporting this whole movie, going against her mother and Steve and the rest of the gang, is explicitly condoned by Ares showing up and admitting he was behind all of this. He tries to claim that humankind is evil to justify his actions, but Steve and the gang, Steve especially, prove that Ares is wrong through their actions. If Steve is willing to die to save people, then mankind can't be as evil as Ares claims, and Diana herself can influence people to be better. So the film reinforces the idea that Diana's choices can shape the world.
It's about what you believe. And I believe in love.
Diana gaining agency is the central conflict of the movie, with everyone trying to hold her back. But then her villain comes onto the scene and not only proves her right all along, but also helps her reach a more nuanced conclusion about her influence. So as far as female character agency goes, this film is top-notch. It embeds her empowerment seamlessly into the plot while giving her a superhero origin story that reinforces her ideals. Now let's talk more about that origin story. We are going to use the heroine's journey, a counterpart to the hero's journey that was developed by Maureen Murdock after working with Joseph Campbell. It begins with a separation from the feminine and ends with accepting the archetypal feminine and masculine to become a complete person. You can learn more about it in the link below. But before that, I was always struck by the idea that Diana doesn't really have an arc. She grows, but she doesn't change, just becomes more committed to her initial ideals. And it is a rare movie for a character to have their original understanding of the world be reinforced by the narrative. Basically, Diana starts the film knowing that Ares is evil and wanting to fight for the side of good. A messenger from the outside world shows up and tells her how important it is for her to join the fight, but her parental figure prevents her from acting right away. Once in a wider world, her new friends doubt her abilities and her beliefs. The devastating loss of the person who brought her here drives her to act against the evil villain who was secretly related to her the whole time. This inspires her to believe in herself and the side of good, which enables her to save the day. Wait a second. That sounds, pretty familiar. Is Wonder Woman's journey the same as Luke Skywalker's? Basically yes. It isn't exactly the same, but they are unique in genre fiction for being characters defined by their unambiguous goodness, whose plots reinforce their ideals instead of bringing them down. For example, Captain America is usually characterized as good with a capital G, but the plot is always about testing his strength, and he perseveres to victory. The goodness itself doesn't guarantee a victory. Frodo Baggins is good, but he ultimately fails, and the quest only succeeds because of a merciful act from earlier. But Luke and Diana are victorious because they are morally in the right. Luke is right to trust the Force even when everyone doubted him. Diana is right to believe that Ares is the one person causing the war, despite all evidence to the contrary. And though both of them start out fairly naive, with their worldly companions always trying to explain how things really work, their achievements in the final act are directly because they were right all along. So while Diana's opening narration sets up the idea that she will be disillusioned by her experiences, the story only reinforces her ideals. So the character arc is more about how the morally right protagonist deals with adversity, and the narrative tension comes from the audience hoping that our hero can come through all of this with their morals unscathed. Alright, let's get into it. The first step of the heroine's journey is the separation from the feminine. In general, this is the separation a young woman goes through from her mother in order to grow up into her own person. It can also be a separation from a societal role, but Diana is a unique female character in that she both has a mother and that her journey begins by separating from her.
Be careful in the world of men, Diana. They do not deserve you.
I find that pretty meaningful, as this step is rarely so accurately represented. I can think of few other female characters who even have a mother on screen, and none where that is a positive relationship for them. Anyway, Diana's feminine is both her mother and the Amazon lifestyle itself, including its cultural ideas and norms. She seems very naive at the beginning, and must reaffirm that she is committed to these values, even after her experiences in the world of men tests her resolve. The feminine upbringing she had was somewhat coddling in that there were no challenges to Diana's ideology, and the Amazons' refusal to help when they learn of the war is a shock to her. From the story she was told as a child, she firmly believed in their sacred duty to help mankind. Steve's arrival is a catalyst for her to act on her beliefs, and she's confused by her mother's insistence that they do nothing, a reoccurring theme for Diana in this movie. In any case, this step of the journey is far more fleshed out for Diana than it tends to be for most characters, even male characters. Luke Skywalker is also unique here because we get to see his home life with his aunt and uncle for several scenes before it is taken from him. Unlike Diana, he did not choose to leave, but both movies spend time establishing where our protagonist came from, and that their journey starts with the significant sacrifice of that home life. The second step on the journey is embracing masculinity and finding allies. For Diana, the main masculine ally is Steve Trevor, who teaches her that her idyllic life on Themyscira is one of ignorance, and who gently challenges her conceptions about the world through their interactions. His worldview is quite a bit more pragmatic than hers. Later, her allies include the whole gang: Samir, Charlie, the Chief, arguably Etta. All of them challenge her principles, having considerably more cynicism than she does. Although Steve was on Themyscira himself, and the others all see that Diana is obviously no mere mortal, no one lends much credence to her ideas and her insistence that Ares is behind all of this. The central conflict of the story, on a spiritual level, is how Diana will react to learning what the world is really like, whether her ideas about the simplicity of the outside world are compatible with the complex reality. And her allies in the story present the counter-argument to her initial conception of how things are in a way that she must respond to, as opposed to having these arguments come from a villain that she can easily refuse. Having her closest friends be the ones challenging her makes for a compelling narrative.
That man is wounded.
There is nothing you can do about it, Diana. You must keep moving.
Which is also present in A New Hope, where Han Solo especially, but Leia and the other rebels, all doubt Luke, the Force, and Luke's abilities to use the Force. The third step is the road of trials. For Diana, this is mainly her time in London. Her goal in leaving Themyscira was to face Ares right away, and her experiences in London tend to be disheartening, as well as preventing her from reaching her goal. She is dismayed by how women are treated here, by how politics is conducted, by the lack of honor in the officers she meets.
Where I come from, generals don't hide in their offices like cowards.
She gives them a piece of her mind and is frustrated to be no closer to her goal than when she left her home. While the sequences in London are certainly fun to develop Diana's character and those of her friends, it is really just a trial on Diana's patience to complete this part of the story and get to what she left Themyscira to do. The fourth step is the illusion of success. This is where the masculine allies show their worth and the heroine believes that her decision to leave the feminine was justified. For Diana, this is actually subverted in the attack on Veld. As they approach the front, Diana is regularly told by Samir and Charlie, and finally Steve, that there is nothing they can do.
There is nothing you can do about it, Diana. You must keep moving.
That they must get to a safe crossing as quickly as possible.
Because they need to move quick. Like us.
That there is no reason to stop and help any of the refugees.
Diana, we have to go.
We need to help these people.
We have to stay on mission. The next safe crossing is at least a day away. What are we waiting for?
So her allies are continually challenging her. In this step, normally, the heroine would discover that her masculine allies led to her being successful in some noteworthy way, though this would be proven false later. For example, this would parallel Luke and his new allies, Han, Chewie, and the droids, successfully rescuing the princess on the Death Star and being able to escape with her, though this victory is an illusion because of the loss of Obi-Wan and because the Empire now can track them to the rebel base. Instead, Diana has a triumphant moment by holding to her own beliefs.
No, but it's what I'm going to do.
And ignoring what her allies are telling her. It is an incredible scene where her belief in the inherent value of helping people is justified. It is, however, really a subversion because of what happens to Veld the next day. Ludendorff's demonstration may have always targeted the village, or Diana's actions may have directly led to it being a target. One reason for her despair later on is because of this step, where she refused to listen to her masculine allies who told her to do nothing, and the crippling doubt that arises from the fact that maybe doing nothing would have been better for the people of Veld. The fifth step is a feeling of spiritual aridity. It is a level of despair that leads the heroine to her lowest point in the story. She realizes that her present course is not working and needs to reevaluate her choices. Notably, this step is not often present in the journeys of male characters, and while Luke is devastated by Obi-Wan's death, it does not make him question his decisions, but only strengthens his resolve to fight the Empire. Even the fact that he is directly responsible for the Empire now knowing the location of the rebel base is not explored. For Diana, this is when she goes back to Veld after it has been attacked. Her entire goal in leaving Themyscira was to find and stop Ares, and just as she was about to do so, Steve stopped her.
What are you doing? Out of my way.
And Ares escaped to destroy the very town Diana had proven herself by saving. She is so utterly devastated in this moment because she realizes that Steve's ideas have gotten her nowhere. She was delayed from getting to Ares by his insistence on going to his bosses in London. She was doubted whenever she wanted to do something helpful. She finally proved to him that her ideas were right by saving Veld herself, and now it is destroyed. It was all for nothing, and Ares has escaped her yet again to commit more atrocities. Her faith in humanity is already being chipped away because of her disappointment in Steve. The descent is the lowest point for the heroine, from which she must rise to become her true self. It is usually brief in visual media, and not present at all a lot of the time, so Wonder Woman is unique for spending time on it. For Diana, this is when she rushes after Ludendorff to defeat Ares once and for all. She abandons her masculine allies, leaving Steve on bad terms, and goes to finally complete her mission. Diana has spent the movie being doubted. Her mother did not want her to be an Amazon like everyone else, and did not even want her to be trained.
But you are not an Amazon like the rest of us.
Steve has humored her, but never really believed she could do what she said she could, that killing one man could actually end the war.
Great.
You'll see.
So Diana sets out to prove that she is both an Amazon and that what Antiope and Hippolyta have always told her is true, that she can destroy Ares and return the world to peace. The heroine began the story by leaving behind feminine things, but now yearns to return. Heroes, again, tend not to have this step as they must find their place in the outside world. Luke leaves Tatooine and never looks back. The only thing that remains important from his past is Obi-Wan and the Force, which he must learn to depend on to be victorious. Conversely, heroines usually must accept some part of their past to succeed. Diana left the island of the Amazons, and her mother, with the goal of destroying Ares to save the humans.
If no one else will defend the world from Ares, then I must.
She has experienced what humans are like and what they will do to each other if left unchecked. Even the friends she has made don't share her idealism, are cynical, and try to convince her to do nothing. As a result, she sorely misses the Amazons and the world she grew up in. She chases after Ludendorff, determined to fulfill this aspect of her upbringing, fleeing the world of men and the friends she made in it as she does so. In the 8th step, the heroine heals the split from the feminine that started all of this. Now Diana does not return to Themyscira, but she does reaffirm her heritage. She rushes to Ludendorff and kills him, invoking her mother and the duty of the Amazons as she does so. But then this step is also subverted, in a way. Her desire to prove that she was right, that her mother and the Amazonian way were true, drives her to kill someone who turns out to be a regular human. She is at first devastated that it was useless, that the war still continues despite Ares being dead, as far as she knows. Steve tells her about human nature and she rejects his philosophy, even though her own has been shaken. She is dismayed that the Germans continue their work, but she is most upset by Steve and his pragmatism being proven right over her idealism. She wanted this to be the fault of one person, for humans to be under an evil influence that could be easily ended, and she is angry at Steve for being right about doubting an easy answer. Angry enough that when he asks her to help him, to help more humans, she refuses.
They were killing each other. Killing people they cannot see. Children. No, it had to be him. It cannot be them.
Ironically, Ares showing up at this moment is exactly what heals the split with the feminine for her. It turns out Steve is wrong, that the masculine allies Diana developed are wrong, and her mother and her aunt were right. There is one man who caused all this, and she can end the war with a single act. Though the fight with Ares is a considerable challenge, his mere presence goes a long way to reaffirm her worldview. While Diana has returned to her roots and addressed her earlier split from the feminine, she must accept the masculine in order to become a whole person. In the 9th step, she has a final conversation with Steve before he sacrifices himself for the greater good. Despite his earlier insistence that there was nothing they could do, here he acknowledges who she is and what she can do.
I could save today. You could save the world.
He realizes she was right, and he is determined to show that humans really are worth saving, that endless war isn't what humanity is all about, and putting a stop to it is the most important act she can undertake. Though she does not speak to anyone else in the gang, her final conversation with Steve gives her strength to withstand Ares' tempting offers, his goading comments, and his support of her anger when Steve dies.
Destroy her, Diana. You know that she deserves it. They all do.
Though Ares shows her Dr. Poison as a case in point for the evil in humanity, she knows that Steve makes a better case for the inherent goodness, being above average and all. Moreover, he is an example that she can be just as influential as Ares was. By believing in mankind's goodness, she can inspire humanity to be better, and that leads her to the final step in her journey. The final step of the heroine's journey is integrating the masculine with the feminine. She has healed the initial split from the feminine and healed the wounded masculine, so now she can integrate both to become a whole person. Diana does this for the end of her fight with Ares. Once she has accepted Steve's sacrifice and understood what it really meant to her, she sees that Ares is no real threat. He may be a god, leading mankind astray, but she has the ability to lead them back to peace. He cannot hurt her as she realizes her true strength and her capacity to love these flawed humans.
It's about what you believe. And I believe in love.
So she easily brings Ares down, using his own power against him until she has fulfilled her mission, the duty of the Amazons. In the final scenes, Diana is shown mourning Steve, but coming to terms with her new understanding of humanity and of herself. Ares was her brother, and she knows she has the same capacity for evil, but the love of the Amazons,
Hello, Diana.
of Hippolyta and Antiope,
You have been my greatest love.
and later of Steve,
I love you.
is what made her a hero instead of a villain. Humans also have the capacity for evil and for good, and she knows that love is what can save the world. So Diana's arc began in a place where she was safe and loved before experiencing the painful reality of the outside world, like any good coming-of-age story does. Like Luke Skywalker, she learns to trust in herself and is justified in that trust. Though her family doubted her and her friends tested her resolve, she proves herself to everyone in the end, even bringing the doubters around to her side. We as the audience experience this victory with her, and that makes it very satisfying. For the last part of our analysis, let's talk about costumes and framing. Since film is a visual medium, how a character is shown is at least as important as how she is written. Female characters in particular can be viewed as just a sexy lamp, no matter how important their actions are to the plot. I go into more detail on the costumes in the link in the description, but let's start by talking about the Amazons. First, they are set apart from what one might expect by coming in all shapes and sizes. Obviously, they are all warriors of great skill, so are in excellent shape, but, like real athletes, they do not all share the same body type that Hollywood has historically emphasized. They are not just a group of petite blondes in flowing white robes, as Greco-Roman deities tend to be represented by. Second, their armor is definitely modeled after actual armor, rather than putting them in leather bikinis. This is expanded as a reason for Diana's Wonder Woman costume, which subsequently also looks like it was based on armor rather than, say, lingerie, as tends to be used. Diana herself is wearing armor as a teenager and onwards. Her armor is a bit plainer than the other Amazons, until the reveal of her signature look, of course. The color of her youthful costumes are about the same, emphasizing her lack of experience compared to the others. When she leaves the mascara in the Wonder Woman armor, she hides it underneath a black cloak to preserve the dramatic reveal in No Man's Land. In London, Diana's black cloak and brightly colored bracers are replaced by a drab coat, which matches what everyone else is wearing. It marks her assimilation into the culture of humans and effectively hides her true nature, for a while at least. The symbolism is well done. Now let's talk about Wonder Woman's costume. There have been many iterations of it over the years, but always maintaining a few key characteristics. This costume is no exception, as it has the red and blue with gold accents, while showing quite a bit of skin. But unlike other iterations, this costume is justified in-universe as being much like the armor of the other Amazons. Instead of thigh highs, she's wearing greaves. Instead of a bustier, she's wearing a breastplate. Instead of a miniskirt, she's wearing the layered leather bands of a Roman centurion. Instead of a tiara, she's wearing her Aunt Antiope's crown, which looks considerably more durable. Diana being revealed in this costume is not the slow panning up that women in skimpy outfits usually get, but rather a powerful reveal of her as a hero and a capable warrior, fighting for what she believes in. At no point does the camera linger on her exposed skin, nor does it emphasize how great Gal Gadot looks in the costume. She is given the respect from the camera usually reserved for male heroes in their powerful moments, and it is incredibly refreshing to see. Alright, here are my overall thoughts about Wonder Woman 2017. This is a coming-of-age story for a woman learning to both grow up and become a hero. It is an old story, but a classic for a reason. It is refreshing to see an idealistic youth grow up without that idealism being stamped out of her. She begins the story by believing in the inherent goodness in people, and that is how she ends it, just with a bit more experience and understanding of humans as complex beings. In a movie landscape that has been populated by origin stories for some time, I loved this one for being both so optimistic and for being about a woman standing up for what she believes in. By wanting humans to be better, she makes the humans around her decide to be better, and that is a wonderful takeaway for a hero's backstory. It is a story for all of us watching that growing up does not mean giving in to cynicism and hate, but that love and compassion are far more powerful in changing the world.
That only love can truly save the world.
So, is Diana more than a love interest? Of course! Now, if you want to argue semantics, Steve Trevor is much more her love interest than the other way around. But in any case, both of them are fully realized characters, with the central conflict of the film being the collision of their worlds and ideologies. They both learn from each other, and their arcs stem from these contrasts. So while much of Diana's character development is based on her interactions with Steve, there is great intentionality to ensure that she remains her own person throughout and that she is ultimately right in her conception of the world. Now, I like to leave you with a book recommendation because of how female characters tend to get more attention in that medium. There are, of course, decades of comic books you can read about Diana herself, with The Circle, or Gods and Mortals, being the highlight of those. If you'd rather read a book about a Greco-Roman demigod in an essential but ultimately tragic love affair, I would suggest Cyrena by Donna Jo Napoli. Thank you for listening to my rambling about Wonder Woman. We will definitely talk about her in the future, but please join me next time on More Than a Love Interest as we continue to talk about Star Wars, specifically Leia Organa in A New Hope.
The more you tighten your grip, Tarkin, the more star systems will slip through your fingers.
Please like, comment, subscribe, ring the bell, all the things so you don't miss it. See you then.